Hey everybody, Brad here. Just like to give you a little walkthrough of the UI of Migrate DB Pro. I've got my blog here on this tab, and you can see the menu option for Migrate DB Pro is under Tools. And then I've got a multi-site install here I use for testing. And you can see it's under Settings because there is no Tools menu here. So that's how you access Migrate DB Pro. So let's take a look at the UI. So we could do, we can choose our type of migration that we want to do. We can export a file. We can save it to our computer, or we can just save it to the server. We can compress the file with gzip or not. And we can do, kind of a backup. If you didn't want to do a find and replace, you can just easily remove these options, these find and replace options here. Let's look at what a poll looks like. So I've already entered my poll credentials in here, and you can connect to the server that way. And so if you look, we've got find and replace here. These can be reordered. If you'd like to change the order, we can add new rows, as many as you like, and reorder them. You can remove these rows like so. And we can filter tables. So if maybe we just want to run a migration of the links table for some reason, or the options table, or just posts and post meta, so we can do that. Or we can just use the default setting of migrating all the tables with the prefix of this install. We can exclude post types. So if we're migrating the posts table, we could migrate just the pages or just the posts. Something to be aware of here, though, is that if you do this, then if you just migrate pages, then none of the posts will be migrated, and none of the posts will be on the destination site that you migrate to. So that's just something to be aware of. There's no merging that happens there. So in advanced options, we can replace the GUIDs. So that's in the posts table. There's a GUIDs column, and you're not really supposed to replace those for a live site. But if you're, for example, if you're pushing this site to live, so if you're pushing your development site to live, then you probably do want to replace the GUIDs. What they're used for is in the RSS feeds. So if a GUID is updated, then you'll actually end up with, it'll show up as a separate entry in someone's RSS reader. So you're not supposed to replace them if the site's already live and people are already consuming the RSS feed. We can exclude spam comments, and this is a handy option here. Don't migrate the active plugins setting. So which plugins are activated, deactivated. So for here, we're pulling. So maybe we want to check this off so that the plugins, maybe we have some plugins locally that are active that don't even exist on the live site. So we want to keep our active plugin setting the same even after migration. And then transients is just, temporary data. We can exclude these just to kind of speed up the migration. It's very rare that you'd ever want to keep transients. And we can back up the local database before replacing it. So we're doing a pull here. So, we could back up the database, the local database, to a file before the migration replaces it. So it's kind of adds more time because it has to do that whole phase, that whole backup phase, but it's highly recommended that you do it, especially if you're pushing to a live site or a staging site. Backing up that remote staging or live database before replacing it, it's always a pretty good idea. And there's some other options here. You could back up just the selected tables that you choose here, or you can back up the tables that you're migrating. So if you're just migrating, for example, comments for some reason, then you could just back up those tables that are selected for migration. It's a handy option. If you have a developer license or better, you also have the media files add-on. So if you have the media files add-on installed and activated, you get this option. And so you can compare local media files with the remote files and download the ones that are missing or have been changed. And also you have the option here of removing local media files that are not found on the remote site. So kind of cleans things up locally. So those are nice options. And then there's a remove all local media files and then download all remote media files. So it just skips the comparison phase and should be a little faster in certain situations. So if you have like just a couple hundred media files or something and you just want to wipe them out and then download the new ones, this would make sense, this option here. And then we can save our profile. So we can choose to save it or not, and create a new profile ID here. So we can save profile. There we go. So some more options are nested in these tabs here. So if we go to the settings tab, you can see this is basically the access. The first two options are access to push and pull. So on the remote side, you're going to want to, if you're doing a push, you're going to want to accept push requests. Otherwise, there's, you get an error that says, it's not enabled. And same with accept pull requests. So right now, we're doing a pull. We would want to accept pull requests. We want to have this checked off on the remote side. Otherwise, it wouldn't work. You would get an error. And enable Ssl verification. This just there's a little pop-up here you can read, and this is just it's just if certain people or certain server configurations don't have SSL properly set up. So I would recommend most people have this checked. But for example, XAMPP, XAMPP, by default, it's not configured properly for SSL. So a lot of people use XAMPP. A lot of our customers use XAMPP, so this is why we have it unchecked by default. But if you're using MAMP locally, or maybe you're using Vagrant or something else, I would highly recommend that you enable SSL verification. It just makes it a little bit more secure, all of our requests. And here we have the connection info for this install. So, any other installs that need to connect to this one, then you would need to copy this information. And we can reset the secret key here, and that's pretty easy. And here we have a compatibility mode, which we can enable. And what this says basically is that it's going to install a must-use plugin so that it can actually activate compatibility mode. And then we can choose here from this list of plugins which ones we would like to be not execute when we're running migration requests. And so, we can choose any number of them, maybe just the ones that are problematic, or we could select them all. Either way should be fine. And then we've got a maximum request size here. And so this, you can jack this up if your server supports higher request sizes. So for example, here it has detected that 25 megabytes, the server can do 25 megabyte chunks of data transferred. So you could play with that a little bit. By default, we set it to 1 megabyte just so that it works for most configurations. And you can see there's a license section down here where you can add and remove your license key. So that's pretty straightforward. We also have an Add-Ons tab here. It shows the two add-ons that we currently have. You can install and activate these add-ons right from here in one click. So no need to go out and get a zip or anything like that. You can also download the zip though, right here from this UI. And also, one thing to note here is that you only have access to these add-ons if you have developer license or better. So if you're wondering why they're not showing up, you might be on personal license, so you need to upgrade. If we look at the help tab, you can see you can submit a support request directly from here with this form. And there's some convenient features here, like including the diagnostic info and error log. You can do so just by checking a box, so it's pretty handy. I'd recommend using this instead of using email. But if you do want to use email, you could use this download button here to download the diagnostic error log, diagnostic info and error log, and that'll allow us to help you a lot quicker. So, and then we've got some videos down here that you can take a look at. They're all built into the help tab. So that's about it. That's a tour of the Migrate DB Pro UI.